We touch it, we tap it, we swipe on it hundreds, maybe thousands of times a day without even thinking about it. Yep, I'm talking about your smartphone's touchscreen. It's the window to pretty much our entire digital world. But how does that seamless piece of glass actually work? Well, in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers and find out.
So, let me ask you a question. Just think about it for a second. If you had to choose right now, would you rather lose your wallet or your smartphone? Yeah, for most of us, I'm guessing the answer is the wallet. It's not even close, right? Our whole lives, our friends, our photos, our maps, our money, it's all packed into this little slab of glass. And the gateway to all of that is the very screen we're about to break down.
So what's the big secret? Well, it's not one single brilliant invention. The real magic is how several different technologies, some of which are actually way older than you'd think, were all sandwiched together into this one perfect package. So, come on, let's peel back those layers? All right, so the first thing you've got to understand is that the basic parts of a touchscreen weren't really new when the modern smartphone showed up. The real genius, the true innovation, was how they put it all together.
I mean, think about it. We already had phones with color screens. We had other devices that used touch. And the process for making glass super strong? Get this, that was figured out way back in the 1800s. But it was the way these separate parts were fused into one seamless experience that felt completely revolutionary. So let's start from the outside and work our way in. The very first layer is that protective glass. We all know that heart-stopping feeling when you drop your phone. But just think about how many times it hasn't broken. And for that, you can thank some pretty incredible science.
Before our current smartphones, most screens were made of plastic. And sure, plastic doesn't shatter, but oh man, it scratched if you just looked at it wrong. A plastic screen would not have survived a single day rattling around in a pocket with your keys. Modern glass completely changed the game.
And the strength we're talking about here is it's wild. The glass on your phone is over 5 times stronger than a normal pane of glass in your window. That is a marvel of material science. So how in the world is that even possible?
Well, it all comes down to this really cool chemical process called ion exchange. Basically, they start by dunking this special glass into a super hot bath of molten potassium salt. At a molecular level, this forces the smaller sodium atoms out of the glass and replaces them with much bigger potassium atoms that literally squeeze their way in. This whole swap creates an incredible amount of force, basically putting the surface of the glass under constant, intense pressure.
Here's a great way to picture it. Imagine you have 3 average people sitting in the back of a car. They fit, right? There's a little bit of wiggle room. Now imagine swapping them out for 3 gigantic football linebackers. They are crammed in there, shoulder to shoulder, totally stuck. It would take a whole lot more force to move them, wouldn't it? That's exactly what's happening with those atoms, and it's what makes the glass so unbelievably tough. Okay, so we've got our super strong shield on the outside. But how does the phone know where you're touching it? For that, we've got to go one layer deeper, to the touch sensor. Now, the fancy name for the tech in your phone is a projected capacitive touchscreen. Yeah, I know, it's a mouthful. But the main idea is actually pretty simple. It doesn't sense pressure. It senses things that can conduct electricity. And guess what? Your body is a fantastic conductor. So how does it do it? Well, just underneath that glass, there are 2 separate microscopic grids arranged in a diamond pattern. One grid holds a positive charge, the other holds a negative one. They're kept apart by an insulator, and that whole setup creates this tiny, stable electric field. This is called a capacitor. Now, here's where your finger comes in. That little electric field is just sitting there, perfectly balanced. But the second your conductive fingertip gets close, your finger actually disrupts that field. It messes with the balance between the positive and negative charges. And the phone's processor, its brain, is constantly monitoring this electric field. The instant it detects that change, that disruption, it knows a finger is there. And because the sensor is laid out like a grid of columns and rows, it can pinpoint the exact X and Y coordinates of your touch with incredible precision.
But hang on a second. If there's an electrical grid on the screen, why can't we see it? Well, this is where a truly amazing, almost magical material comes in: indium tin oxide, or ITO. It has this incredibly rare property of being both electrically conductive and almost perfectly transparent. It's the secret sauce that makes the whole thing work. Okay, so we have our super strong glass on top and that invisible touch sensor in the middle. But what are we actually looking at? Well, that brings us to our final layer, the deepest one, the display itself. And in most modern phones, that's an OLED screen. OLED stands for Organic Light Emitting Diode. Now, unlike older LCD screens that just used one big backlight to light everything up, an OLED display is made of millions of microscopic lights, and each one can generate its own color and brightness. And when I say millions, I am not exaggerating. A good smartphone screen can have over 3.3 million individual pixels. Each one of those pixels is a tiny little dot that makes up the beautiful image that you see. But it gets even more amazing. Each one of those 3.3 million pixels is actually made of 3 separate little lights, or subpixels, one red, one green, and one blue. If you do the math, that means there are over 10 million microscopic, individually controlled lights packed into the palm of your hand. The level of engineering that takes is just staggering. So to recap how that's built, the whole display is made of millions of pixels. Each one of those pixels is made of 3 subpixels, and each subpixel is its own little red, green, or blue light. By controlling the brightness of each of these tiny lights with insane precision, your phone can create basically any color the human eye can possibly see. So we've taken the whole screen apart, piece by piece. Now let's put it all back together and see how these 3 very different technologies create that one seamless, almost magical experience. All right, let's stack it back up. At the very bottom, you have the OLED display, generating that vibrant image with its millions of tiny lights. Laminated right on top of that is the transparent touch sensor, using that electric field to wait for your finger. And finally, the entire package is sealed up and protected by that chemically toughened glass, keeping all that amazing text safe and sound. And really, it all comes back to this one idea. A touchscreen is such a simple concept, right? You just touch what you see on the screen. But to make that simple idea a reality, it requires this absolutely mind-boggling structural complexity underneath. It's just a perfect example of the hidden genius that's all around us, inside the everyday objects we totally take for granted. Thanks for digging into this with me.